Hi guys, so it's about that time of the year when I have to start tearing my classroom down, and today is the last day that my classroom is going to look like this before I have to start taking stuff off the walls. And I wanted to kind of record what it's like right now for my own memory, and also to show you what my classroom looks like in case you didn't get a chance to come visit me this year or were just curious about where I spend my day. So we're going to start right over here. These are a bunch of posters that my students made for an assignment where I basically told them to come up with an exponential situation and just make a poster about it to show us what it's like. So these are kind of cool. Like here's one on viral videos, here's one on like a zombie outbreak, here's one on the spread of rumors, pink eye, nail growth with this creepy cool nail drawing, rhino poaching stats. He actually looked up the stats for this, kind of alarming. Yeah, so that's what this is up here. And if any of you guys were friends with me when I was a CA or an RA, if you don't go to ASU, you remember how much I hate making bulletin boards. Yep, still do. This is not decorated at all. I barely covered the corkboard, and who cares? So this is a place where they come and grab like missing homework and stuff. If they were absent on that day, it's like sorted out by color and by day. Swap cards are these little like shout outs they can give to teachers, and they can put them in their mailbox. And here is stuff for the Good Life Project, which is something I do with them, and trackers for stuff that they need in class. So that's what the back wall looks like. It usually has a lot more papers on it, but I started to clean those up, so it looks way neater than it usually is. Here's where they turn stuff in. Now you'll notice that each of them is organized by color. At the beginning of the year, each class chooses their colors, their class colors, and that decides where everything for their class ends up being. So period 1 chose red, period 2 chose black, period 3 chose blue, purple, and pink for period 6. So that just kind of coordinates everywhere. Over here I have the varsity practice board, which is basically if you finish your work early and you want to do something a little more challenging, you can come back here and give this a try. And these are kind of organized by how much time they have left in the day. So if they have 10 minutes, there's a little logic puzzle for them. 5-minute puzzles, there's another 5-minute puzzle. And if they get them right, then their score on the all-star list goes up. These are very difficult. This is from the entire year. Even out of the 4 that I've given here, like I was going to add more, but nobody actually got all 4, so I've left them up here. Which brings me to my favorite part of my classroom, which is this big mural wall. Now on this wall, every single one of my students made a collage of kind of their idea of the good life. What are their goals? What are their dreams? What are they working hard for? And that's why I have the words, why do we work hard? Just so that they can have that visual reminder. It's cool to actually be able to point to this wall. Like if they ever grumble about doing something, I just point to this wall and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is why I have to do this, because doing well in school and learning is going to help make this true for me. Here is where reminders and homework and blah 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 goes. I only have 2 quotes up on my wall. Here's the first one from Cesar Chavez, which I really like. And here's one from Beyonce that I also really like. That's just the consequences list. Here's where we put Student of the Week. As you will see, or as you can see, they are still organized by class color. And these are the ones that were there from last week. So I tried doing theme days this year. And I wasn't consistent with all of them, but some of them I was. Every Monday we do Mad Minute Monday. Most Tuesdays we'll do Truth Tuesday, Regents Wednesday, Throwback Thursday, and Reflection Friday. Mad Minute is where you have a minute to solve as many problems as you can, and then the winners of the Mad Minute per week get their name here up on the wall with the scores of how much they got, as you can see, also organized by class color. And then when we do Truth Tuesdays, those are essentially culture building and character building activities that we do. I usually take 5 to 10 minutes out of class. Sometimes we watch TED Talks, sometimes we watch news clips, sometimes we read articles, and we have a little discussion about kind of what it's like to live in this world and how can we be better people in it and how can we be better to each other. And then Throwback Thursday is just like review problems from a few units ago to make sure they still remember how to do them. And Reflection Friday usually ties into the theme of that week for Truth Tuesday. So whatever topic ends up being discussed that week, on Tuesday I'll encourage them to pick some sort of action item. So suppose we talk about kindness that week and I share an article about somebody being kind, we'll talk about like what that looks like, but then before they leave, I'll have them set a goal of like, this week, how are they going to practice doing that? And then on Friday, they tell me whether they were able to do it or not, what made it difficult, and if they were able to do it, how they felt, etc., etc. Up here you can see our class points, again organized by color. Class points are points that the whole class gets. You get one each time every single person in the class is following directions. A lot of my lessons are very like open-ended and constructivist, so I give them class points also when I see that everyone like worked really hard that day. I haven't updated this tracker in a while, but there's like my tracker for like state standards and stuff that they have to do. It's really high up on the wall, so I don't do it very much. Over here you can see like sweet notes and stuff that my students have written for me. I have those up here. Here's like a card that they made for me, and these are like swap cards as I was showing you back there. Those go up here. I have like 3 math posters in here, just for, you know, little reminders, little square roots. Did you know that paper crayons have an example of every single type of triangle? I didn't know that either until one of my students pointed it out last year, so now it's a thing I do every year with my students. The equilateral triangle is hardest to spot. It's the body, in case you were wondering. I also kind of wanted to show you the distance between the board and the very front row of desks. Specifically, like when you're standing up here, like this is how close you are to students. This is on purpose because this keeps me from staying at the board for way too long. So if I need to like explain something like, oh, la, la, like I'll do that here, but then I'm like this close to them and I'm like, ooh, this isn't comfortable. And it like funnels me out this way. And then I like walk, check how students are doing, kind of turn around like, oh, like, okay, here's how it's going. And if they still have like questions and stuff, like my students can go up there. But I do like a little lap here. And then if I need to explain something like, oh, like I'm back at the board, like, oh my gosh, this is really comfortable. And then I'll start walking again. So a lot of my students who sit in that front row always complain about being this close to the board. They're just the selected students. Not because they are having trouble seeing the board, but because they're just there to make me uncomfortable so I don't spend too much time up here. Here's another scan of my room. This is what it looks like when you're standing in the front of the space. And out here in my room you can see a sign that Ben made for me so everybody knows where my room is. And around this corner is another project that my students worked on. This was during one of the Truth Tuesdays when we talked about food deserts. So they designed cities using angle relationships and graphing and all of that stuff where everybody had equal access to the same resources. And over on this side is a bunch of letters that my students wrote to other people at school, telling them that they love them and they're glad that they are a part of their support system. This is a really nice poster that the FCCLA group made for all of the teachers here with some nice notes. Here's a little 2015 poster. And here are more love letters, right? Because I had every single one of my students write 3 of them. And then we put them all up here. We did this the day after one of my students passed away. Her name was Zakia Elzie. That's why you see the Kia gang. And this was just a way for us to kind of focus on the fact that we are one family and that we are here to support each other no matter what.
Thanks for watching!